You're live, Bob.
Great, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thursday, October 15th, 2020, 5 o'clock p.m. remote participation meeting of the Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals. If anyone is interested and wants to log in and access the meeting, you can do so by calling 1-646-749-3112 using access code 944-571-349. Or you can go on your computer and go global-go-to-meeting.com and then join 944-571-349. So I have a script I have to read as we have been for the last few months. Please bear with me for a minute. So this is our remote participation script for the Zoning Board of Appeals. And we're going to confirm everyone's access here. So as a preliminary matter, my name is Robert Tatro. I'm the chair of the Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals. In an effort to reduce background noise, I'm going to ask that you all please mute your phones at this time and only unmute if you're going to speak. Permit me to confirm that all the members of the board are here and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So with that being said, taking roll call, Mr. Marin, Vice Chair, sir, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Larry Ciccolo.
Bob, that was not the vice chair that responded. That was an applicant.
I thought that was an unusual voice. Let's try again. So for the applicants, we're going through with the members and town officials that are here first, then we'll get to you all. So Vice Chair Michael Marin, are you present?
I am present, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Ciccolo. We do know that Larry is, somebody is managing his mute button for him.
Okay, I'm here.
Thank you. Richard Cussy. Hi, Richard Cussy.
I don't see his name, Bob.
Okay. Okay. Let's
Bob,
go.
I did get an email. I did get an email saying Richard Cussy would be present, so maybe circle back on him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I saw that same thing. Thank you. Megan Roach.
I am present.
Thank you. Peter Jones.
Present.
Thank you. Caitlin Bush.
Present.
Thank you. So then we go through our list of town officials. When I call your name, please verify and respond in the affirmative. Lieutenant Kayla Moody.
Here.
DDIS Director Darlene Coyle.
Here.
Town Highway Engineer William Coyle.
Yeah.
Are there any other town officials present that I was not able to identify? If you could identify yourself at this time. Okay, hearing none, seeing none. So we'll do the introduction of the remote meeting. So good evening, this open meeting of the Town of Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals, Thursday, October 15th, 2020, now called to order at 5 p.m. This meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public hearings. As such, the governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to encourage to participate remotely. The order, to which you can find posted on the agenda materials for this meeting on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so as long as the reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals is convened by remote participation for the public only. Although some staff may be physically located at the Selectmen's meeting at the Town Hall, Selectmen's room at the Town Hall, the town employees are practicing social distancing in accordance with the governor's orders. Again, I said this once before, but I think it's good to say it again. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, call 1-646-749-3112, and to access code 944-571-349. Or the public can join by their computer. I go to gotomeeting.com, and up in the upper right corner, you're going to type in 944-571-349, and then you can join the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Auburn Cable Television and will also be available on the YouTube channel. Accordingly, these members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, employees, and members of the public participate. Please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and please take care not to screen share your computer or anything that you may broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting materials, all supporting materials that have been provided for the members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate minutes for the meetings. I, Robert Tatro, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak, identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by a roll call vote. If we have any technical difficulties, we will suspend the meeting while we try to repair it. If we have the accurate minutes noting any disconnections and reconnections for the members. And also, obviously, that goes without saying that if we do have some type of disconnection or issue, the meeting will automatically go on hold and suspend until it starts again. So there is our script that I read. Do I have a motion to open the 5 o'clock p.m. hearing? Applicant JT Acquisitions, LLC, requesting a variance under section 3.2 of the Auburn zoning bylaws to construct 2 structures for multiple business use on property located at 15 Technology Drive, Auburn, Mass, map 42, parcel 40. Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, Michael Marin, I'll make a motion to open the hearing.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Rich Cussy, second.
Thank you, Mr. Cussy. Just to make sure that we're all being able to toggle back and forth with some, relative ease. Mr. Chicolo, how do you vote?
Would you repeat that question?
I'm just making sure that we can all toggle back and forth effectively with our remote devices. So I'm just asking for a vote to make sure that we all agree that we're going to open the 5 p.m. hearing. It's really just to make sure we're working on our electronic devices correctly.
Yeah, and I am going to dial in again, so somebody may see that on the computer on my landline, and yes, approve.
Thank you. Ms. Roach?
Yes, I approve the motion to open.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Approve.
Thank you. Caitlin Bush?
Approve.
Okay, so we got that out of the way and we have an open hearing for this. So is the applicant present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, could you introduce yourself to the members of the board and to the folks listening at home and give us an overview of what you're trying to accomplish here, please?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, it's Attorney Todd Broder from Fletcher Tilton here on behalf of the applicant, JT Acquisitions, LLC. A little bit of background on the applicant. Sorry?
No, I just said good evening, Mr. Broder. Welcome. I apologize.
No problem. JT Acquisitions is a holding company for Justin Eisner and Tim Johnson, who are 2 local builders and contractors who have had many projects in the town of Auburn. They bought this property 6 or 9 months ago or so and have been looking to develop the property at 15 Technology Drive. It's in the general industrial zoning district, and it's about a 2-acre parcel. The proposal that you see in front of you is a plan to construct 2 9,600 square foot buildings on one parcel that would be carved up into different size bays depending upon the need of the tenants that would be within the buildings. So these would be bays that would be for rent to contractors, tradesmen. They could be used for storage, operations that would come to the site in the morning, take their materials out to a job, and then come back and maybe park vehicles inside the building or utilize it for storage of their materials and or equipment. In conversation with Caleb and the zoning determination, it was viewed that these uses would likely be classified as general service uses, which are not permitted in the general industrial zoning district, and neither are, multiple buildings or multiple types of uses on a property such as this. So the proposal in the request in front of you is for a use variance to allow for the general services uses that we talked about, and to allow for the multiple uses and multiple buildings on one parcel. The plan that's in front of you was developed by Jay Du Bois from JC Engineering, and if this plan were to be approved, if the variance were to be approved, we would need to go to planning board for site plan approval, where I'm sure we would have lots of questions about site lighting, landscaping, drainage, and the like. So we're here to discuss with you the concept of whether or not a use variance is appropriate for this site. I'm sure folks have seen the application materials I submitted, so I won't go through all of the details that are in the application in terms of the description of the proposal or the standard for the grant of the variance. But should somebody ask me, I'd be happy to go through that and discuss that with the members as you see fit.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead. Do we have any abutters present that might be interested in speaking before I address the board? If so, you just unmute your device and introduce yourself briefly. I'm not sure if that was an attempt to unmute or just. Okay, so it does not appear as though we have any abutters that might like to speak, but we'll give them the opportunity should they tune in at a later time. Vice Chair Maron, do you have any questions of Attorney Broder, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Broder, a few questions to clarify the intended use. So when you describe once constructed a variety of bays, are there going to be any customer-based operations, or are you anticipating just storage of materials and equipment and access there too?
Good question. This is not anticipated to be a customer site at all. In fact, the parking is something that we'll need to talk about, but the parking is going to be for employees only, and it's anticipated that it'll be a pretty low count. So no, this is not a customer-facing situation.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to reserve to circle back with any additional questions. I've reviewed the brief that's been prepared. I don't have any additional specific questions at this time.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Chicolo.
Hi, thanks, Bob. I'm very interested to hear you address the issue of why you believe you should be able to get a variance. And let's first touch on topography. What is there about the topography of this parcel that would allow you to get a variance? What is unique about this topography?
Sure. So first, I guess I would point to the brief where I probably did a better job at enunciating this, but I'll try here. But part of the unique situation here is obviously the comment I made in the brief about COVID-19. The town has been looking at doing some adjustments to the zoning table uses and what would be permissible in this district. And, you know, this was a conversation I had with the town officials prior to taking this application up. And it was my understanding that the fall, or actually it was going to be spring town meeting prior, this was potentially going to be an article on the town meeting, and if not, then fall. And I think we all know that town meeting's been taking up, you know, the real critical matters instead of looking at some of these zoning matters. And it's hard to educate the public on zoning changes during this time. So the town has not proposed any of those going forward. Our clients have been in a holding pattern since then, waiting to see if those bylaw amendments would be undertaken. And, you know, they didn't want to have to go with this route with the use variance because of the issues surrounding, you know, the standard for the grant of one. So, you know, it's a very unique situation and how this all ties together. One of the things I didn't mention in my brief, and this goes to the soil conditions and to the shape and topography question, is there is a very high water table on this property, which does not allow for any kind of real foundation penetration to any deep level. There could be no basement level in a building like this, or any kind of, you know, underground equipment or anything like that. The groundwater is very, very high. In fact, in talking with the client about how they would have to do this, they would have to essentially raise up either part of the site or the slab itself, and really keep it elevated above the water table. So, though I didn't mention it in the brief, I'll mention it here. I think that is, you know, a condition related to the site here that is unique.
I think here on Packagug Hill, we all deal with that issue when we build. They still are going to have to go down a substantial distance, as I see in the plans that were set forth by the engineer, as well as frost. Hey, I want to reserve the right to come back on that. The next problem that I have is the hardship, not the hardship, but the public good. Let's do it that way. Your number 3 point. As it is right now, people coming out of Technology Drive and or that are going into Technology Drive, the larger vehicles that do use Bancroft Street as a shortcut. With the amount of people that jog, the students at Auburn High that run for cross country, and that cuts across because many of the sports have been postponed. That cuts across every sport that Auburn High has. And as I said, the people that jog, walk, push baby carriages, okay, or walk dogs has significantly increased on Bancroft Street, with large vehicles and trucks both delivering and picking up from a warehouse site. That's a problem in my mind, a real problem, because many 40, 44-foot trailers come down that are just using the street as a shortcut. And to add to that, in my mind, creates a significant safety factor.
Okay, I guess I would respond by saying that this is a general industrial zoning district where some fairly intensive uses could be, at this location. I think that the uses that I'm suggesting are simply different. I mean, I'm not sure they're more intensive than what would customarily be within the general industrial district as it stands today. This street in and of itself, has warehouse / distribution. I'm not sure how Caleb would qualify some of these uses, but they are, auto part delivery, servicing. There's, Harvey Industries is right down the street with, deliveries.
Wait a minute, Harvey Industries is not on Bancroft Street, and it's on a main route, so trucks go in and out using Route 20, and only a portion of Bancroft Street is general industrial. The rest is residential. Maybe I can help it along by saying, coming out of Technology Drive, taking a right, if that situation could be addressed at either end of Bancroft Street, I think that would make me feel an awful lot better. If you are leaving in Technology and did not or were not allowed to take a right, that would definitely help my feeling.
Can I interject here for a moment? Mr. Cussy, excuse me, I apologize. Mr. Chicolo, I definitely recognize the issue with the traffic and the increase. I also can tell you that on a grander scale, that's something that we can't really address. But I think that the increase in deliveries and trailer trucks has been a general concern in the neighborhoods of the town for quite a few months now. But I don't think that we can use that as a means of interpreting a whether or not we should be able to issue this variance or not. But I definitely agree with you, the increase in traffic. I also don't even know if we can address the idea of right turn or left turn only signs. I'd want to defer that to Caleb. I think we really got to be able to determine here is that, what is the purpose of 2 buildings versus 1? And where it fits as far as the requirements of the variance. So with that being said, I'd just kind of want to just bring us back to focus here. So with that, Mr. Chicolo, do you have anything else you want to add for now?
Well, can we kick this back for further either traffic study or?
So I'd like to let the members of the board speak and address their concerns before we go and make a decision like that or talk about it. But there's certainly opportunities that we have here as
the chair, if I can jump in.
Sure. I just say as the scope of the meeting continues, I'm sure we might be able to address some of these concerns. But go ahead, Caleb, please.
So what the board should be looking at tonight is just the mandatory findings for a variance and whether the applicant meets those. If the variance was granted, the applicant would still need to go before site plan for site plan approval. And
Correct.
at that point, the traffic study would be conducted.
Right. Okay. So again, we're back to being, is this a plan appropriate on this site based on the requirements of variance and where it sits in our aquifer protection zone 2? So I think we should probably delve into some of those questions for now. Do you have anything else you want to add, Mr. Solo?
Not at this time.
All right. I'll move on to Mr. Cussy. Sir, do you have anything you want to talk about with the applicant?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Yeah, why 2 buildings and not just 1?
Sure. So first of all, something I did mention previously, which ties into your question, the applicants are planning to develop 1 building at a time and work to fill 1 building before they construct the other building. And if there is a tenant that comes along that has a different design or need, they want to be able to sort of move towards that. This will be a for rent facility, and they could have 10 or 12 bays in total between the two buildings, but depending upon the size that people indicate that they would like. So 2 buildings is really just a cost item, just trying to stage it so that they fill up one building before they go on to the next.
Okay, I'm good for now, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roach?
I don't think, I guess my only maybe question, I think it's slightly been addressed, is do they plan to have, you know, what do they plan to have in each building? Are we talking, you know, each bay is going to be separately rented to one company, or one company is going to rent 3 bays? I'm just wondering if maybe, you know, if they're renting multiple bays to 1 or 2 companies, that may, you know, sort of alleviate some of Mr. Chicolo's concerns about the amount of people in and out. I mean, obviously they don't have any tenants right this minute, but do they have any idea on how many tenants they're going to be looking for altogether?
So it's a good question. I think, you know, when an applicant such as this looks at a building like this, there's one of 2 situations. Either they already have a major tenant in hand and they're building with that tenant in mind, or they're essentially building on spec a facility that they think people would like to rent from, but they don't know yet and they don't have identified yet any of those tenants. So I just can't answer the question. It's not that I'm being evasive. They're going to put the property for rent, and however many tenants come along and with different needs for those bays, they're going to fill them up as they come along. So, you know, it's hard to answer the question. If it were 1 tenant, I'm sure they would be ecstatic. But if it was 5 tenants, that would be okay as well in their minds. And just a further point, because you mentioned it again on the traffic and sort of the trips to and from the facility. I don't minimize the impact. You know, I grew up on Bancroft Street. I lived there for 21 years of my life, knowing that even at that time, lots of residents use it as a cut through. And I'm sure that if these facilities, you know, I'm sure that they do contribute to the overall traffic in town. The point I would make is it is a general industrial district. Somebody mentioned warehouse, and warehouse could be the warehouse and distribution of, or wholesale of those materials and products. That's an allowed use in this zone by right, just with site plan approval. We're not asking for a warehouse use, which I would think would be more intense than what we're talking about. We're not talking about tractor trailers. We're talking about pickup trucks and, you know, contractor vans and things that are servicing people within neighborhoods. We could have plumbers and electricians that use this facility. Those are people that are likely in town anyway, running around to different neighborhoods servicing individual homes. You know, I think it's a stretch to say that this facility as proposed is going to create a serious impact on traffic. And certainly I think you can see from the size of the buildings that this isn't a facility that's going to be serviced by tractor trailers.
I'm good for now. I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Mr. Jones? Do you have any questions or concerns of the applicant?
I have none.
Thank you. Ms. Bush?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I think most of the questions that I had were actually probably already addressed by the members. So what I'd like to do is go back to Attorney Broder. let's go ahead down and run through the requirements of the variance request here and make sure that we can dot our i's and cross our t's, and I'll bring it back to the members of the board.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Broder, but Mr. Chairman, would you indulge just one additional question?
Of course I would, absolutely. Vice Chair Barron, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Broder, just to check a box, understanding it doesn't sound like they have intended tenants currently, and that's an unknown. Do you know if there's any anticipated or proposed signage at this location for the variety of tenants or single tenants, or the landlord themselves?
Not that we have developed at all at this point. I imagine that each tenant might want to put a small placard on their door or their space so that, everybody would understand it's their space. But other than that, no, I don't foresee a monument sign or anything of any substance for this particular site. I don't think there's anything on the plan. And if there were something developed, it would certainly have to be in accordance with your bylaw.
Thank you for that. Mr. Chairman, thanks for letting me interrupt.
Absolutely. Okay, so looking at your, I'm looking at the same plan at home here that you're seeing on your screen right now, just so it's closer in front of me. So we're looking at two buildings at 120 feet by 80 feet each, correct?
Correct.
And that is a total of 9,800 square feet per building.
I might have done the math wrong. I thought it was 9,600 a building, but
It certainly can be. I just got new glasses, so I'm probably not that close. I probably might have to graduate to the magnifying glass soon. But yeah, so okay, it's 9,600 square feet per building.
So.
Yep, okay. And otherwise, if this was not for the fact of a variance issue, it meets all required setbacks and all the other things. Again, you had mentioned parking spaces might be a concern, but we have to address, again, I know Mr. Giacolo's issues usually revolve around the big steps that we have to leap over to get to a variance. So can we address those, sir?
Sure. As you all know, and I've spoken with many of you in past meetings about the concept of a variance, it's pretty difficult to meet the standard. And in particular, when you're talking about a use variance, a use variance, how does it relate to the soil condition, shape, or topography? And so I look at these things and I say, okay, I mean, in this particular case, you've got this wacky triangle that extends up to the right, which you actually can't see on your plan, right?
Right.
But we're not utilizing that, but for the drainage outlets. So you could rely upon that in terms of the shape of it. It's very unique, and I don't think you see too many parcels that look like that. But here, I think really the story has to do with really the businesses that could go on that site and what we're looking for, and whether or not this is a direction that it is appropriate for this site based on those constraints. So, I mean, I could talk to you about the triangle. We could talk about the high water table. I could talk to you about the unique situation with COVID and how we believe this property would already be zoned appropriately with the changes that were contemplated to be brought forward by the town. These folks are in a position where they bought the property and are now, looking to develop. So I guess you could or I could hang my hat on the triangular shape of that area. We could probably hang our hat on the high water table. I think the more relevant arguments, COVID-19 and how it's relating to the use on the site. But I offer all three for your
My
digestion.
only big question, I think you've addressed those two concerns. Financial hardship, can we address that at all? I'm just going down my checklist.
Sure. So if you actually look in the zoning table, the uses that are allowed in the general industrial district are actually pretty limited. You know, what you have over there on Technology Drive, as we touched upon a little bit, and I named some of the operations there that are close by, you know, are really maybe cousins to what I would expect to see in a general industrial district. And when you look at the shape of the lot and how it could be developed, I think this use is pretty appropriate. I don't think that a warehouse use would be a great use for this site based on the size of it and the shape of it. And certainly, you know, these folks have made an investment in the property, already owning it, and having a limited number of uses available for something like this to make an investment with, I think, is really what it's a financial hardship issue.
Mm-hmm. So I think I can appreciate that, and also I think two 10,000 square foot buildings actually fit in with the general size of the buildings in that area currently anyway. So in that sense, I think they would be appropriate in terms of their size and dimension. I can see where it would be a financial challenge to deal with, again, you know, this particular parcel and the development requirements, and building it out in stages seems to be probably a wise choice on the applicant's part. What actually, just for the folks at home and for, you know, the board's general knowledge, is there anything on this lot right now, and where does it stand?
No, this lot, as far back as I can remember, has always been vacant. This was carved off from the Briscon Electric site within the last few years and sold to our clients within the last year. And there's nothing on the site, it's vacant.
Okay, that's good to know. So I'm going to go back, Mr. Marin, Vice Chair, do you have anything you'd like to readdress? Then we're going to go back around the horn again.
I don't specifically, Mr. Chairman, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chicolo?
I'm okay right now.
Thank you. Mr. Cussy?
No questions.
Ms. Roach?
I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
None, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Bush?
I'm good.
All right, so with that being said, it appears as though all the members of the board have their questions or concerns have been at least addressed, or that nothing else exists for them. Do I have any abutters that may have joined the meeting in the meantime that may want to introduce themselves? All right, I'll do my traditional countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hearing none, seeing none. So with that being said, do I have a motion on the 5 o'clock hearing before us?
Mr. Chairman, I propose that we close the public portion of the hearing so that we can take it into board discussion.
I'm sorry, I was addressing something at the house at the same time. I apologize. You are correct. So I'd like to ask for a motion on closing the public portion of the hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion as stated.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, I'm good.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Roach?
Yes.
Yep, and I'm good. Okay. So with that being said, do I have a motion on the 5 o'clock PM application for variance on property located at 15 Technology Drive, Auburn, map 42, parcel 40?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Go ahead if you want to introduce yourself. And is that you, Mr. Marin?
It was, but I think someone else was trying to speak and I wanted to defer.
Okay, so anybody else want?
Go ahead.
Chacolo.
That was me speaking over Mr. Marin. Mr. Marin, please go ahead.
Oh, I was merely going to say, and Mr. Jones, I'm happy to defer. I believe that's Mr. Jones. I was merely going to suggest before we open to a formal motion, I for one would like to, given that a variance is before us, I'd like to open for a discussion as the variance is at times a steep climb based on our parameters. Wanted to see if Ms. Chacolo, as I often defer to his expertise on the matter, open up for discussion if we have an opportunity to satisfy and lean into the first and secondary tiers of the variance requirements.
Absolutely, well said. Mr. Chacolo, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay, and actually, because the brief that was filed by Mr. Brodeur mentions nothing about the water table, and that is that is the hinge pin for me. So I'm very glad that he brought that up, because that satisfies me. Not that I don't want it to sound like I'm the one that has to be satisfied. Please believe me.
No, but we do, as a board, rely on each other's areas of interest, and this is your particular area of interest that you've always expressed concern with. So we do defer to our, so to speak, experts. So thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could duck back in, that being said, and I again would defer to Mr. Jones if he had a comment, but I would be prepared to move forward with a motion to approve. I am in agreement that the water table presents us an opportunity to look at that as a topographical hardship, so to speak, and I think we can take the conversation from there. So if Mr. Jones has something to interrupt with, then by all means. Otherwise, I would state the motion to approve with standard conditions and move forward.
Okay, Mr. Jones, do you have anything you want to add?
Sure, I'll just second that motion.
Okay, well, there you go.
Through the chair,
Yes, sir.
just for housekeeping, we need to make sure we just have 5 members voting, not more than 5.
So the one I've been allowing people to all be involved because we've had some, issues with attendance. But just for the record, it would be myself, Mr. Cussy, Mr. Chacolo, Ms. Roach, and Mr. Marin would be our voting members. I'm allowing Mr. Jones and Ms. Bush to participate regularly, even though they're our alternates. And really, it's for experience, training, and in the event if something does get continued and another member cannot participate in a future meeting, it gives us options. So those are the reasons why I was actually conducting the meeting in that manner. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify that, Caleb. I appreciate it.
Sorry about that. I just got so used to voting.
So anyway, we have a motion from Mr. Marin to approve the application with standard conditions. Did I miss anything, Mr. Marin?
No, Mr. Chairman, well stated.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, this is Chacolo. I'll second.
Thank you. So I have a second from Mr. Chacolo. Mr. Cussy, how do you vote?
Yeah, I'll grant.
Thank you. Ms. Roach, how do you vote?
I'll vote to approve.
Excellent. And I do as well. So congratulations. Good luck. I hope things go well. I know you'll be on contact with Caleb, and we'll get you moving on to the next stage of this, long journey. So congratulations.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And by the way, you're running a great meeting under unusual circumstances, so thank you.
Thank you very much. It's definitely challenging, but it's kind of fun at the same time. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll give them a minute to move on, and then I'll read just the beginning. So we have a 5:10 p.m. applicant Mark and Marcia Mariner requesting a variance under section 3.2.2.0 of the Auburn zoning bylaw for change of use on property located at 67 School Street, Auburn, Mass. Map 057, parcel 159. Are those applicants present?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Hi, okay, hold on one second. So it appears as though we're pretty clear as far as background noise go. Do I have a motion to open the 5:10 p.m. hearing?
Mr. Chairman, Michael Marin, I'll make a motion to open the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Marin. Mr. Cussy?
I'll second.
Mr. Chacolo,
Approve.
Ms. Roach?
Bob, through the chair, I have to recuse myself from this meeting, from this particular hearing tonight. So I'm not sure that I should be the one to approve the motion to open the hearing.
Yep, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So Ms. Roach is notified us per requirements that she will not be participating in this hearing. So we're gonna move Mr. Jones up to a full voting member. Perfect example of why I just do what I did. So Mr. Jones, are you present and are you agreeing to open the hearing?
Yes and yes.
All right, and you are aware that you are now participating as a full voting member for this hearing?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so, and I also vote to open the hearing. So, folks, if you could just kind of go over what you're trying to accomplish with us, let us know what's going on, and then we can kind of, as you saw the last hearing, what you'll probably be presented with. So go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, members of the board. As you know, my name is Mark Mariner. I'm here with my wife, Marcia, and we are requesting a variance to sell our property located at 67 School Street as a residential home. As you may know, 67 School Street is on the tail end of School Street towards Route 20. It was a home when we purchased the property in 2005. And to our knowledge, it was a home from its inception. We bought the property in 2005 and for the purpose of using it as our counseling office, which we did. We didn't change that we wanted to keep the residential character of the property, but we did not change any structure to the property, to the building. Nothing in the building has been changed. We just converted the bedrooms to our Marcia's and my office, counseling office. And we continued to see clients there from 2005 to 2020, this year. And in March of this year, with COVID, we were in a situation where we needed to stop seeing clients there and began seeing our clients on an online basis. So the building really has not been used as a counseling office since March of 2020. So as time went on, Marcia and I made the decision that it was time to sell the property. And we went to our broker, who is present with us tonight, Anne Marie Sorensen, and she advised us that the best and highest use of the property at this point would be as a residential home. We were fine with that. We put it on the market in August, the beginning of August, and a couple of weeks after that, a young couple came to the property, fell in love with it, and wanted to buy the property. So in August, we negotiated an offer, a purchase and sale agreement, and things were going along smoothly. We had a closing date of the 26th of September, and so everything was moving forward. The only thing that was missing to close was the final appraisal report, and they had given the figures, so the bank had given their commitment, but we're just waiting for the final report. Well, 2 days before the closing, the appraiser contacted the town and realized at that point that it was no longer, because of our use, no longer considered residential, which was at that point a shock to everybody. And so we contacted the building commissioner, and he advised us that this was the procedure to go forward with. The buyers have agreed to continue to hold out, and we think that the variance, is warranted here for a couple of reasons. I think one is the whole street is residential. This house has been residential. It still looks like a house. And so it fits right in with the character of the property. And I think that, of course, it would be a very big hardship for this young couple who has fallen in love with the property and wants nothing more than to make it their home and would be dearly, dearly disappointed if somehow they weren't able to use it as a home. But I think the financial hardship for us is, as well, is that, it has been unoccupied. We haven't been able to use it. And our broker has advised us that there really is absolutely no market for commercial property at this time of this sort. And that we would just be sitting on the property ad infinitum if we weren't able to get a residential buyer. So that's really all I have to say, is by way of introduction to I'm hoping that the board would consider granting a variance. It's a very unique situation in that it really has been a residential property resident for all of its time, other than us, and the character of it hasn't changed even during the time that we used it. So with that, I will just I'll bring it back to the board, and Anne Marie may have some things that she might want to add to this, but I'll bring it back to the board to see if there's any questions that you'd like to ask of us.
Do we have any abutters present that would like to speak on the matter before I turn it over to members of the board? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hearing none, seeing none. Vice Chair Maron, do you have any questions or concerns of the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just for clarification, and I believe I know the answers to these, but for the record, I'm just going to, for all of our benefit, just point out a couple of things. So what I believe before us is currently the property is a business use, and the request is for a variance to reverse that to determine it a residential property. Is that correct?
That is correct. The property is, because of its proximity to Route 20, considered in the highway business district. However, as I mentioned to you, it has been used as a residence all of its life, other than when we were using it.
Quite frankly, for the neighborhood, it probably would be better for it to be residential because there were a lot of cars coming in and out. Our neighbors were very gracious. They've been very supportive. So she texted me this morning wishing us luck with this sale. But I think really for the neighborhood, a residential would be the optimal use.
And as far as this is the part where again, I'm just checking a box here for the record, but I believe I know the answer. So we're not looking at any structural changes, any lot changes in any way, shape, or form.
That's correct.
Well,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any further questions or concerns at this time.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Chicolo, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tatro. I've been by and looked at the property, and I really don't have any questions or concerns regarding this application at the moment.
Okay. Mr. Cussy.
Yeah, I have one question, Bob. So this is a non-conforming house lot? Is that what I understand?
That's what what we understood, and I think the building commissioner can probably speak to it more clearly. When it had been a residential use up until 2005, I think when we made it an office, that's when the non-conforming use was considered ended. And that's why it shifted back into the regular highway business zoning. So that's why we're now, asking for that variance. I think that's correct, building commissioner.
So I'm actually gonna hold on one second. I'm gonna yield the floor to Caleb. And so if we have any questions or clarification, I'd kind of like a little bit of a history on this up to this point. I think that might be helpful to the board.
Through the chair, so I would agree with the applicant. This was an existing non-conforming use of a residential house in the local business highway business district until 2005. When the applicant started using it as their business, the grandfathering rights for the nonconformity are eliminated. So that's why the variance is needed.
Okay. So, but this, originally, the applicant applied for this substantial change to the use in order to create their business, correct?
No, we didn't have to apply for anything.
Oh,
Through the chair. Through the chair. The business use is an allowed use by right in the highway business district, so there was no application needed.
Sure.
Once that business use starts, the nonconformity is eliminated.
Okay.
That's
So
why,
that's it for me,
why
as
we
well as I think members of the board might have been afraid to ask. But, so that's good to know. Okay. To the applicant, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
nothing more. Thank you.
Okay. So seeking and finding that clarity, we'll go around one more time. Mr. Maron, do you have any other questions based on the new information?
I don't, Mr. Chairman, but I wanted to defer back to our colleague, Mr. Custer. I believe it was his line of questioning that led us to the nonconformity topic.
Great. Okay, I'll do that again in a minute. 1 second, please. Mr. Chicolo, sir, anything else?
No, sir.
Great. And I'm going to yield the floor to Mr. Cussy to find out, sir, of how your concern has been addressed with that.
Yep, Caleb took care of my questions. Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. So I did see somebody logged on, or maybe just somebody became visible. Is anybody here that is in a butter one more time before I close the public hearing? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do I have a motion to close the public portion of the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion as stated.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chicolo?
Second.
Mr. Cussy?
Approve, yep.
Mr. Jones?
Approve.
And I approve. Public portion of the hearing is closed. Do I have a motion on the 10 application? For Mark and Marcia Maron requesting a variance on the 3220 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for change of use on property located at 67 School Street, Auburn, Mass, map 057, parcel 159. Do I have a motion?
Pete Jones, motion to approve.
Who is that, Mr. Jones? Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, Michael Maron, I'd like to second that for approval under standard conditions. I think that what's before us makes perfect sense for this property.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and I appreciate that point of clarification. That is very helpful to me, by the way, when I'm trying to do these. Mr. Chicolo?
Approve.
Mr. Cussy?
Approve.
And I approve. So congratulations, folks. Good luck with the sale. Hope things go well.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure Kayla will be in contact with you and take care of the rest of the paperwork. Okay, so again, as the last one we did, we're going to start the 515. This one is going to require a little clarification to begin with. So the 515 applicant, Eastland Partners Incorporated, requesting a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, for workforce housing apartments on property located at 109 Tinker Hill Road, Auburn, Mass, map 59, parcel 8 and 26, Albert Street, Auburn, Mass, map 65, parcel 71. And just for the record, this has been continued from 5/21, 6/18, 7/16, 8/20, and now 9/17. Are the applicants present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're all here.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. So before I begin, there were some questions today. I received a phone call from the Department of Inspectional Services, just for the record, expressing some current concern about a submission of what they consider to be substantial change to the application. After some discussion between the applicant and the Department of Inspectional Services, that information had been reverted back to the original application, but I just want to make sure the members of the board are all kind of up to the same speed We're gonna make sure that we vet this properly and then move forward, but I just want everyone to know that there was some unintended consequences of today's conversation before the meeting began, so we're just gonna seek clarification on that. So with that being said, do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, Michael Marin, I'll make a motion to open the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Marin. Mr. Chacolo, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cussy?
Yes, open.
Ms. Roach?
Again, from a prior conversation today with the building inspector, because I missed 2 of the continued meetings, even though I did the Mullins Rule paperwork and watched the hearings. The rules indicate that if more than 1 hearing is missed, I am not eligible to vote. So I also am going to have to step down as a voting member with this hearing as well.
And again, thank you very much, Ms. Roach, for clarifying that. I really do appreciate that. So again, Mr. Jones, hearing that, are you prepared to step forward as a full voting member for the Eastland Partners application?
Yes.
Okay, and you have been present and are up to speed on all the past meetings, minutes, et cetera.
Yes, I believe I've attended every one.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. So for the record.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
In the interest of full disclosure, I did miss one of the meetings. However, the last meeting, which I had communication errors, but did listen in, albeit not voted, okay, but listened in to the last meeting. So I should be allowed to vote, but that is in the interest of full disclosure.
So I'm going to refer to Caleb and see how the Mullen Rule on that.
Through the chair, Mr. Chicolo will not be eligible to vote. You'd have to bring Caitlin Bush forward.
Right.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay. So Ms. Bush, are you present?
I'm here.
I thought so. Thank you. So are you also up to speed, participated, or at least was witness to all the past meetings up to this point?
Yes, I believe I've been present for all of the meetings.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that point of clarification. So with that being said, we're going to have Ms. Roach and Mr. Chicolo will step aside, and Mr. Jones and Ms. Bush will be brought by myself, the chair, forward as full voting member. All right, so somebody has just arrived, I saw on my screen, and they have a lot of background noise. So if somebody's calling in from a car or using a phone, if you could turn that down, I would appreciate it, please. Thank you. Okay, so we have the hearing open. Gentlemen, I'm going to defer the floor to you, Eastland Partners. So if you want to just clarify, you could do a much better job, because I certainly was not present on some of the issues that were brought forth today and how we got them back to where we are now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to do that. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yes, I can.
Great. So my name is Steve O'Connell from Turning Point Engineering on behalf of the applicant. So what we'd like to do is clear up some confusion that you mentioned. So on behalf of the applicant, we submitted an amendment, request to amend the application, which was intended to split off some of the excess land not needed for the actual development. And the intention of doing so was because it's fairly common that land that's going to be designated perhaps as open space would be held in a different controlling entity. And in order to do so, would have to be broken off. It's also common that for construction and project financing, that land not necessarily needed for the development itself also be separated. But upon speaking with our council today, we're comfortable withdrawing that request. So please accept that as formal request to do so, to accept our withdrawal for that amendment to the application request. And I would like to take this opportunity to let everyone know that our counsel, Mr. Lou Levine, is in attendance this evening. He is only here to help guide us through some housekeeping and administrative processes, seeing how we're very close to the end of this process. So I did let Caleb know that he would be in attendance, and he's here if should his services be needed. That being said, if it's the appropriate time, I'd like to maybe provide a additional brief update.
Absolutely. Please continue.
Great, thank you.
You have the floor.
So just for the benefit of everyone in attendance, we did work through and resolve some final comments from the Auburn Fire Captain to his satisfaction. Since our last meeting, we also received an email with the results of the sewer study. And the short story is that the sewer system and the current pump station configuration does have the capacity to take the flows from this project. We continue to work with the Auburn Water District. We have a draft memorandum of agreement to continue to work with them to make their connection to the city of Worcester's water system, which would be our preference to supply water to this project. And I'm happy to report that the Auburn Conservation Commission at their hearing last night closed the hearing, and they now have 21 days to issue an order of conditions. And that process with them went very smooth, which included a site visit 2 Saturdays ago. So that's a fairly quick overview, but you know we've covered a lot over these months, and I think we would probably all agree that some of the outstanding items regarding this project include items within the draft decision that's been circulated a number of times. So unless there are any questions from board members or abutters, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield the floor.
Excellent, thank you. So do we have any abutters present that might like to comment this evening? As we are coming up to the end of our series of hearings on this matter, this would be a good opportunity if anybody has a concern. All right, hearing none, seeing none, I'll give a countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will yield the chair to the vice chair, Mr. Maron. Sir, do you have any questions, concerns, or issues with the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to call attention to the brief that we have this evening and pull us back to the last hearing in a conversation we had on operational hours.
Yes, sir.
If I'm interpreting this correctly, on page 5 of 11, and then the following page insert that I have, there are 2 highlighted sections that outline hours of operation. And in that section 6 on page 5 of 11, it articulates that the proposal is standing on 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturdays. Is that correct?
To the applicant?
The draft has 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays. I don't know if you've been provided that.
So the draft that I have, midsection of section 6 on page 5 of 11, reads, with maintenance and crushing equipment allowed Saturdays between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m.
So, Mr. Maron, the most recent version of the draft decision is dated October 15th, and there are 14 pages.
So it appears we don't have the most recent. So let me start with the question directly then, other than the reference that I have, which appears to be outdated. So what are your intended hours of operation on the weekdays and on Saturdays?
The intended hours of operation are from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays. No work on Sundays or holidays.
Okay. So
I'd like to add to that, if I may, is we expanded that to say that there'll be no rock blasting, no rock crushing or hammering before 8 a.m. or after 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, or before 8 a.m. or after 12 p.m. on Saturdays.
Apologize, I forgot that he has been deferred. Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. So we have an agreement with the water district to tie into Worcester. You're going to work with the water district?
To the applicant?
Yes, we've inserted a condition of approval as such.
Okay, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Mr. Cussy is referring to is, at our past meeting, we had a representative of the water company here, and there was some concerns of whether or not those can be reached. And I think what we're clarifying is, since that last meeting, any issues with the water department have pretty much been addressed, and you have at least a letter of agreement with them. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've got a substantially completed memorandum of agreement.
Right. So I'm kind of summarizing, but I think we're on the same page with that, correct?
Yeah, that's great, Bob.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Cussy, do you have anything further?
I'm good for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. So I'm looking through this again, and I found 4.2.9 where it talks about 8 to 4:30. I'm looking for the section that talks about work starting at 7. I'm just not finding it.
Through the chair.
Yep, go ahead,
Primary.
Carol.
So there are two draft decisions. There's a draft decision that's been brought forward by the applicant, and there's also a draft decision that's been brought forward by town staff. And town staff has not wavered on the work hours. We're still supporting the standard work hours that the planning board puts forth for all projects in town.
That helps. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, can I follow up on that comment from Building Commissioner?
Absolutely.
So what exactly are just remind us what the standard operating hours are prescribed for all projects?
I believe they are 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday and 8 to 12 on Saturdays with no work on Sundays or holidays.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jones, thanks for letting me interrupt.
Oh, absolutely. And no interruption. Again, we're representing the town, the interest of the community. We need to vet these things, and I want to make sure everybody is comfortable with the knowledge they have before them. And I'm sure the applicant does as well, so that's fine. So let's go. Mr. Jones, are you complete? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, so just for clarification, I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So what's before us for approval today would be this draft from the town? Is that correct?
So
Through the chair, if I can jump in.
you can, please, go ahead.
So there are certain time limits on the project. The next meeting being November 19th would be at 183 days. Before 180 days, the board needs to close the public hearing. They then have 40 days to draft a decision. So my recommendation would be to close the public hearing tonight and spend the next month reviewing the town staff's decision that's been reviewed by town council and voting on it at your next meeting, November 19th.
Right.
Yeah, that helps.
Go ahead.
That was incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So if I can clarify, just let me explain a little bit here what we're talking about to kind of bring it all together. So if you heard the applicant say that they went in front of the planning board last night, they agreed to close the hearing, which did not require a vote, which allowed them
Through
to
the
defer.
chair. Through the
Go
chair.
ahead. Yep.
The applicant appeared before the Conservation Commission last night. They did close the public hearing. They have not issued an order of conditions as of yet.
Exactly. That's where I was going. So they did not issue an order of conditions. It allows them to have some time. And then when the complete and comprehensive finished certificate of decision of the comprehensive permit by our town attorney has been vetted, then we will look at it. and then we will vote on it. But we're providing them an opportunity to move forward tonight. So is that clear, Caleb? Am I saying that right? Do you want to add anything to that?
Through the chair, I would just say, the applicant has tonight, if they don't wish to request a continuance, they have tonight to make their argument for different work hours than town staff's presenting or any other differences from our decision.
Right.
Once the hearing's closed, they won't have that ability.
Okay, correct. So thank you very much for adding that to the discussion. So I'm going to go around and make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. So to the applicant, you understand where we're going this evening and you agree, at least in substance at this time, that you are either going to have the hearing closed or you're going to request a vote this evening. You understand that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we understand the position we're in, and we can't make a decision at this time. We would like the opportunity to talk about the work hours memorandum we submitted, and when you feel it's appropriate.
Sure. Okay. So let me just make sure. I'm going to seek clarification, then we'll get right into that. Mr. Marin, are you? We all understand what we're going?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thanks for the opportunity to clarify.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, I understand.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Mr. Jones?
Yes, well, I understand now. They'll be discussing their packet, which has the Eastland name at the top.
Correct. And Ms. Bush?
Yes, I understand.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to defer the floor back to you, gentlemen. With that being said, if you want to address the matters at hand for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We put a lot of thought into the discussion of this topic since our last meeting, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide this document and talk about it tonight. One of the things that resonated with us was several board members indicated that it was their duty to look out for the neighbors and the abutters of this project. And we don't disagree with that. But for that reason, we feel as though strong consideration needs to be given to these work hours that do in fact protect the neighbors. The impacts of a simple 1 hour delay in the morning has much more of an impact than that 1 hour, as we talked about at the last meeting. We'd like you to understand that the points we made in this memorandum are valid points, and they're significant. It's significant to the lifespan of the construction phase of this project and the impacts to the neighbors from the duration due to the extended time frame that the project could take from a reduction in work hours.
Mm-hmm.
Can't emphasize enough the information we provided, such as safety conflicts with the Auburn Middle School and Swanton Intermediate School bus routes and pickup times, unnecessary traffic conflicts with normal commuter peak hour traffic conflicts, industry standards for construction hours for all sorts of subcontractors and delivery companies and suppliers. We've scoured your local bylaws and regulations and ordinances and found nothing that would restrict the hours that we've requested. Would not be in violation of any Massachusetts air pollution control regulations. And I'd also like to say that some of the complaints that occurred during the subdivision off of Blaker Street were actually found to be not as a result of the subdivision being constructed by Eastland Partners, but it was other work going on in the neighborhood. Documentation we provided as part of this packet. It does, in fact, have a very significant impact on this project, these hours of operation. And really happy to dive into any of these points I've made. Some information that was provided specifically regarding the traffic counts that we're taking show that if we have laborers and delivery trucks and other subcontractors coming to the site for an 8 a.m. start, they're going to be in direct conflict with peak hours of traffic for vehicles traveling on Albert Street and Blakely Street. In addition to the school bus pickup times documented at 7:30 and 7:50 in this area. So to address those safety concerns, these are very important points. I know that the board was somewhat divided on this issue, and we'd like to talk through it again. It's that important to us.
Excellent. I appreciate the presentation. Again, I'll go around to the members of the board. Mr. Maron, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my position is unchanged. I've heard the applicant's explanation and their concerns and their hardships and why they're requesting. I would ask the board to consider, and those that are of perhaps a different opinion of me, I'll share my cards. So I don't see a reason why we should offer this project a different consideration than any other project that we offer as far as standard operating times. The impact of this project, the size and enormity, in my view, will impact not just the abutting neighbors and the immediate area, but it will impact town residents wide in ways both financial and otherwise that we haven't even begun to calculate. So in my view, there should be no question of whether we offer any additional time of operation here. We should go with the town's proposal and advice on at a minimum of an 8 o'clock start. And I'd ask my board members, look, my vote is no more important than anyone else's, but I am absolutely resolute in my decision that a 7 o'clock start is unreasonable.
Okay, I appreciate that passion, Mr. Maron. Thank you very much. Mr. Cussy?
I have no questions right now, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, any concerns with the start times or anything like that? That's what we're really addressing, or at least having the opportunity to address.
Yeah, I agree with Mike, 100%.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that, well, I certainly see arguments for both sides, and it seems like a compromise of 7:30 would be terrible, as it would be create problems for the buses. But as I said, as I believe I said a month ago, I don't think 7 a.m. is all that unreasonable, and I think it's possible that maybe other projects in town should have had a 7 a.m. start all along. I understand I might be in a minority here, but I thought I should make my position clear anyway.
And I do appreciate that. Thank you. Every one of our opinions is equally valued. Ms. Bush?
I think my opinion stays the same as last month. I think we need to defer to the abutters and the residents and stick with the 8 o'clock start time.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. You know, honestly, as the chair, I don't really spend much time kind of trying to get in with these. I like to try to let the board members do their thing, and I really honestly see the value of both sides. You know, starting an hour early or an hour later every day does tend to add up dramatically over time. The one thing I would like to add, though, is that even if we do keep the 8 o'clock start time, which sounds like what would probably happen, I don't think it precludes any of your employees or delivery people from arriving on site before 8 a.m. Is that correct, Caleb? I mean, if I start work at 8, they expect me to be there at 7:30, right?
So through the chair, the work hours are the work hours. We expect that they stick to those work hours. Someone gets to work at 7:45, I don't think it's an issue. It's when we start having equipment and large trucks idling for 30 to 40 minutes, that's where it becomes an issue.
Sure, but what I'm saying is, again, you know, if it's my requirement to get there at 7:15 because, you know, I open the job site up for those that arrive, I don't think those are issues in my humble opinion. But I'm gonna again go back to the members of the board. Mr. Maron? Do you understand what I'm saying on that?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a thoughtful point. I think it's a point that actually has been raised at a previous hearing, if I'm not misremembering, by
By myself, actually.
yeah, no, thank you. By Mr. Coyle. I think that it was raised that a consistent concern on projects such as this, where the start time is preceded by early arrival by a variety of equipment. And if we back that up from 7 o'clock, we're starting earlier to get equipment in the yard. And so I would humbly suggest that it actually further goes to my point that if we're starting at 7, then we're allowing folks to pull in that yard earlier than that and park and be ready, which is a routine practice. I mean, I just, for one, vehemently disagree with the 7 o'clock start.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Mr. Cussy,
My opinion's the same.
thank you. Just want to make sure, Mr. Jones?
Thank you. I think the issue of trucks idling from 6:30 to 7 is, it's a very important point. I'm glad it was made.
Thank you. Ms. Bush?
I have nothing additional.
Yep, okay, just making sure. To the applicant, I think that, based on the information provided, I don't really see that changing much. Do you have anything else you'd want to address regarding any of the restrictions or other issues you may have?
Mr. Chairman, Eastland's council would like a moment to address the board.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Lou Levine. I heard the members speak, very reasonably about their issues and debate that concern the hours. And I do agree with the building inspector that whatever the start time is, putting aside 5 or 10 minutes either way, that's when activity is deemed only to be able to begin by. So if it's whatever o'clock it is, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, from an enforcement standpoint, the building inspector is going to say, you really can't have people mobilizing and doing all this stuff before the start time, and it can't continue after the end time. So this is a 40B project, and the idea of a 40B project, and I don't mean to be solicitous to the board, okay, because from what I've observed and reviewed, this has been a very positive process between Eastland and the board and the town. So we've come down, which is rare for me, we've come down to the hours of operation, which in all the 40Bs I've done, and I've done many, many, I really haven't had this conversation. I understand the board's concern, but it is a 40B, and 40B was implemented to take away economic disincentives, to make housing and affordable housing more economically viable. So in this rental project situation, the developer, the owner, has a limited amount of profit they can make. And when you impose, so typically, or in fact, the Board of Appeals asked whether or not they're willing to grant waivers, variances from existing local regulations, bylaws and codified regulations. So we're in a unique situation here. We don't have a regulation per se in Auburn that has start and stop hours. What I do understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have a custom, okay, in Auburn as to when hours start and they stop. Well, I would most respectfully suggest that that is not something that's type of waiver or regulation that a town could apply when it's not like a zoning regulation or a local wetlands bylaw regulations. Those are the kinds of things that 40B is asking the board to consider and to say whether or not they can be reasonably waived and make the project economic. So here we have this weird situation where a regulation is being imposed. And it does have a materially effect on the economic viability of the project. If you add the hour at the end of the day and the hour at the beginning of the day, it's adding about 20% or deleting 20% in terms of the project, time for the project to be built. And that doesn't even take into consideration during the winter, it gets darker earlier. So 7 o'clock start becomes more imperative in the winter than potentially in the summer. So I would only ask the board to consider that way, that I understand and I appreciate, and I understand the Board of Appeals exercises their discretion when they sit on variances and special permits. I think the standard is a bit different here, but we're really coming down to an issue which is really not a waiver of a regulation, it's the creation of a regulation. And it does have an effect. And if you want to limit the activities that can happen earlier, in terms of those things that make noise, I think that's a reasonable discussion. By way of example, though, painters, plumbers, electricians, cabinetry people that are all working in the interior of the building are not going to make any noise to the outside world. So potentially we could parse that out and, limit the activities to other things that would create noise at hopefully a wider scope and hours. So I would ask you to consider bifurcating the activities to those that are like electrical, plumbing, the interior carpentry, et cetera, that I don't think anyone would reasonably say it matters whether the fellow is there at 7 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock at night. Now we can talk about excavating activities and framing activities, having somewhat different hours. So that's all I'm trying to suggest. Again, I think the board has been very reasonable in their approach in this project. And of all the things I've ever argued about for a 40B, it's never been hours of operation before. But I do recognize the board's concern. So I'm asking if the board could consider, segregating activities that would create noise and activity. So by way of example, electricians, plumbers, they're going to come there and they're going to work all day. They're not going to have, very many trucks going in and out. It's the activities, the larger activities, which is typically site work and framing. And even framers are going to come in the morning and leave at night and not have, much vehicular traffic. So it's really the site work. And potentially, if we could look at it that way, I think we could come to a reasonable, I hate to use the word compromise, but, set of hours that satisfies everybody's concerns. That's all I would ask that, through the chairman to consider, breaking it out or parsing it out into activities or sub-activities. If the painter is there, no one knows the painter is there when he's inside the unit.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. So let me go back to the board and entertain this thought. And I'll start with the vice chair, Mr. Marin. If we were to give as a condition that they could refer to the.
Through the chair, if I may jump in.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Just to respond to Attorney Levine's comments, through the 40B process, the zoning board absolutely has the right to condition a project as long as it's not making it economically difficult for the applicant. Auburn is fortunate to have 2 other recently approved 40B projects with the exact same work hours condition that we're proposing now. I also agree with Attorney Levine's comment that if a painter's in the building, nobody knows he's in the building. We respond to complaints. We're reactive. So if the painter's in the building and nobody knows he's in the building, we're not getting complaints and we're not stopping him from painting. This condition of work hours isn't to prevent them from doing interior work that doesn't impact the neighborhood. It's the other work that we're concerned with and the complaints that we receive. So I would agree, if a painter's in the building, nobody knows he's in the building, nobody's calling us and complaining. That would not be an issue. I would not have an issue adding a caveat to the work hours that the building commissioner has the ability to allow certain aspects of work to take place.
And again, that's exactly where I was gonna go. I was gonna propose to the board that, obviously exterior, construction-related noise such as, trucks, cranes, earth-moving equipment, all those loud things with the backing up of the, beeps and all that type of stuff. And again, that's the concern. It's not necessarily the fact that somebody's in there mudding and taping an apartment or putting a toilet into a bathroom. I think my proposal, which I was gonna say, was that I think maybe the board might find it at least somewhat appealing to say that we can defer those things to the building commissioner and they can contact each other as needed. And I think that would be reasonable. And I think the reason I am kind of pursuing this is because of the size and scope of the project as well. We do have other 40B projects in town and they are substantial, there's no question about it. But both of them together aren't the size of this project either. So that's why I say these hours really matter. So I think if the board would find that reasonable, here I am, the chair, trying to find a common ground, is that interior work that does not create a certain level of decibel noise outside should be permissible with notification to the building commissioner or his designee. So
Mr.
that's
Chairman?
on this. Yes, sir.
No, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think your suggestion is very reasonable and rational, that if you can indicate that interior work that doesn't create any excess exterior noise is permissible, between the 7 to 5 hours and the Sunday hours, and then the exterior work would come under your shorter hours. I think, we don't want to be in a situation that we're asking people to look the other way, meaning, yeah, we have hours that afford it, 8 to 4, but everybody knows the painter is in there, beyond that or before that. We want to, run the operation, the way it's supposed to be, and not put the building inspector, in the difficult position to look the other way. So I'm very happy with your suggestion. I appreciate your cooperation, and I hope the other members of the board, would be able to embrace it. That interior work that doesn't create excess noise is okay, and exterior work is limited on your, on the hours that you had, 8 to whatever they were. I think we can move forward on that.
Okay. So are there any other concerns or issues that you'd like to address with the conditions of activity at the site before I move forward with this particular one? Or I think, is this really our main sticking point right now?
Steve, is the issue with respect to the open space otherwise resolved?
Yeah, I believe it is. The most recent revision to the draft decision hopefully include a suggested condition, but I think Caleb was waiting to hear from town council. But Caleb, would you like to opine on that? Whether you think that the use of the open space restriction as suggested would still be incorporated in the comprehensive permit?
I'll defer the floor to you, Caleb.
So through the chair, my understanding was that you requested a withdrawal of the modification.
Yep, we did, but as
So
this process has
evolved,
we
so the open space.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
Just going to say that as the process evolved, we concluded that the condition, kind of applying some restrictions on an open space just made sense. It would still be, there'd be no proposed land division, but it just kind of brought this issue to the surface. But
So I would say that the town has an issue with the conditions that you want to put on open space. Using open space for water distribution, temporary roadways, it's just not open space. Open space is just that, open space.
So I think, in other words, we are considering open space to be undisturbed land. Would you agree?
I would agree. Open space we consider to be used for recreational purposes only.
Mm-hmm. All right, gentlemen, can you address that?
There was one of the, again, through the chairman, there was what the building inspector mentioned, use for wells, use for temporary roads, and use for drainage as well as recreation. Putting aside the wells and the temporary roads, obviously recreation is, agreed upon. I would hope that there's no issue on using the open space, for, drainage. That still leaves it in a passive situation. Do you have any concerns about that, Caleb?
I'm gonna defer to the town engineer on that.
Through the chair, if I may,
Yes,
I
Mr.
did
Coyle.
look at some of the request for the use of the open space, and I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was potentially for a well, I assume public water supply well, temporary roads, drainage, utility, associated structures, in roadways themselves. So I think that the intent for open space is for it not to be disturbed. So based on what was requested, it leaves it open, pretty vague on how much disturbance could occur. If you're allowed to use it for drainage, utilities, wells, structures, roads, temporary roads, I envision quite a bit of disturbance potentially occurring in an area that is designated as open space. I don't think that's the intent of open space, and I think this is the first we've heard of that when the request for the modification came in, which was also one of our concerns.
Okay.
Again, through the chair to try and resolve it, I think the applicant would waive the request for the wells and waive the request for the temporary roads. And that's why I only mentioned the drainage. So again, just to bring, am I correct, Steve?
Well, it's no secret, even Mr. Coyle has, in his documentation to the zoning board, has acknowledged a water supply well. And, it's a high yield well, and it's very important as a safety net for the project that the use of that well or the permitting of that well be an alternative water source. And I really think that's what we're trying to protect here. All other aspects, I think we'd be happy to let go of. And if the development of that well required, piping and all the pertinences, water piping, electric supply for pumps and that sort of thing, the temporary work it would take to get that well up and running, that's it. That's where we're coming from.
It would only be if it was necessary because you couldn't get water from Worcester or the Auburn Water District.
Exactly.
Correct?
Exactly.
Okay, hang on one second. So, Mr. Coyle, is that your understanding from what the applicant just stated, that this would be sort of a plan C, if you will?
I only heard some of that, but it sounds like they're saying the only thing they were requesting to use the open space area for would be as a source of public water supply well. Is that correct?
Correct.
For this project, if necessary.
I think, I understand your request. I think during the creation of the conditions, I think that's something we'd want to run by town council. I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily have a major concern with a well only, but I do think we'd want to at least have the agreement of town council.
Well, that's fine, but it would, again, it would be just a well in addition to recreational activities, but only a well if necessary to supply water to this project. So I think as the chairman said, it would become Plan C if something happened with the Auburn Water District and or the city of Worcester.
Okay, I understand the request, and I think it's something that we can bring before town council to make sure there's nothing that we're missing that might be associated with that request. But I understand what you're asking.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. So we have a resolution of one of the issues. So let me go around to the members of my board. Vice Chair Maron, sir, with the information gathered through my discussion with Caleb, the applicant, and the possibility of indoor work being approved, provided it was quiet and something that the town was aware of, such as Caleb or his designee, is that something you would find more appealing?
Ms. Chipman, thank you for the question and the opportunity to address. So if I may, if the board would indulge a couple of points, because as the applicant's counsel had pointed out, I believe 2 points. One of which was whether or not this board, based on the uniqueness of this application and the size and scope of the project, whether or not this board should take up the topic of operating hours as a condition. I believe that our building commission, and whether or not this board in fact might have the authority to do so and restrict. And I believe that Caleb satisfied that point by affirming that we in fact do have that authority to prescribe operating hours consistent with what we've done with other like projects. And so the second point that was raised was the one, Mr. Chairman, that you articulated relative to subjugating activities specifically. In my view, that is a subjective exercise. And I think a reasonable person would openly admit that a painter and a plumber is a lot quieter and less intrusive than moving earth. But the size and scope of this project, and I'd like the board to consider, we're not talking about one painter, and we're not talking about one plumber. We're talking about a crew, a team that's going to get there a little after 6 and idle for a while and get their ducks in a row. And so I, for one, would ask the board to consider, again, it appears to be a palatable compromise, but I think that, if we're worried just about phone calls of those that might observe folks going in and out, we're talking about folks that are front loading their work early, regardless of their trade. And so I remain positioned that I think that we should subject this project in kind to what we've done with other projects, and that we shouldn't be coming in on allowing any additional time or allowances based on this project simply because it's going to create hardships.
Thank you, Mr. Maron. I appreciate that. Mr. Cussy.
Yeah, I'm still going to agree with Mike on this. This is a big project, and I think that we need to set the time limits. I'm going to stick with Mike.
Okay, that's fine. I appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Jones.
I think bifurcating the hours of operation seems like a pretty good idea. And I would expect that you wouldn't have these crews making incredibly noisy meetings outdoors outside of work hours. I would expect they would not be there an hour early, idling. I would expect them not to be wasting that much of their own time, showing up for work any more than 15 minutes early. So for that reason, I think Mr. Levine's suggestion that the work hours be bifurcated seems pretty reasonable. Again, I recognize I'm probably in the minority still.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Ms. Bush?
I agree with Mr. Jones on this and Mr. Levine. If there was a way to separate the different activities from, I guess, the noisy activities from the painters and the electricians, I think I could be persuaded to change the hours for the activities that wouldn't cause, disturbance to the neighbors.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, really, I think, is there anything else that we really need to address in terms of the draft decision this evening? Because I can see that the hours of operation are going to be probably not changed. It doesn't appear as though. It looks like, from my point of view, from the board, and this is just strictly my point of view, that it does not look like that might change for the time being. So with that being said, we've talked about the other things. Is there anything else on the draft decision we need to go through, or that may need to be referred to town council for this evening?
I think we've covered everything, Mr. Chairman. There's condition regarding police detail. We just changed the wording so it was clear. We had no objection. We just felt the wording was ambiguous, so we just suggested some alternative wording. But we have no objection to paying for police detail when deemed necessary by the Auburn Police Chief at the intersection of Laker and Albert Street.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So with that being said, it appears as though most of the issues that we've had here this evening have at least.
Through the chair.
Yep. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to comment on that last comment from Steve O'Connell. So the only wording that we would want to add to that condition would be that the police chief have the ability to require a police detail at other intersections if they became necessary, if he thought they were necessary, rather than just the one intersection.
No objection.
I'm sorry, can you say that again, please? We had somebody join in, and it might have interfered with your communication. So Caleb pointed out that he wants to make sure that in the decision, if it's the chief of police's decision, that other intersections may become necessary.
We don't object to that added wording as long as it's clear that intersection problems are related to this project. But I think that hopefully will be obvious. But we don't object.
Right. Okay. I think that's pretty clear, Caleb.
Okay, Bob, so if I can just jump in. So if the applicant has nothing further to add, I guess you'd be looking to see if they want to request a continuance or if they want the hearing closed tonight. And then if the board had any conditions that they wanted to add to what we've provided, we'll work with town staff and work with the board and town council to get a decision drafted for the next meeting.
Right. Excellent. And thank you for helping me steer it in that direction, Caleb. I appreciate your, making sure that we stay the course here. So with that being said, one last time around the horn, Mr. Maron, sir. So you understand that the possibility is this evening that we are going to have the applicant either request a decision or have it closed.
Continuance.
That's correct.
The applicant, through the chair, the applicant would either be requesting a continuance or we would be closing the hearing tonight, moving forward with a decision.
Okay, so as long as we're all on board with that, I'm going to defer to the applicant. So, gentlemen, could you be clear on what you'd like to have accomplished this evening?
If I can suggest, Mr. Chairman, I believe you said your next meeting is November 13th.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
November 19th.
And
19th, excuse me.
okay, 19th. I apologize. I would ask the board if they could move forward with their decision, but if we could also continue the meeting with the understanding, if you close the hearing, we can't comment on the decision to the board at the next meeting. And so it's been my practice with 40Bs that, yes, staff should complete their decision with town council, and I think the applicant should have some opportunity to take a look at the final decision. I think we've had a fairly focused discussion on only a few issues in the decision. So you can continue the meeting to the 19th with the understanding that you're going to have a decision in front of you that you're going to vote on. And if there's some tweaks to the decision because, you know, the applicant has been able to convince you to change wording, or the board doesn't like the wording, because the next time the board gets to consider the decision is at their next meeting. The fact that staff and town council drafted doesn't mean that you voted on it. So there's always that play in the decision. So I think it accomplishes both goals. We continue it until the 19th with the understanding that a final draft satisfactory to staff and town council would be circulated for the board's consideration, and hope to vote on it on the 19th.
Okay, so with that being said, so I just want to recap. So it appears as though you duly acting as counsel for the applicant is the applicant is requesting a continuance as it stands now, keeping the meeting open until the November 19th. But understand that we are at 183 days. So our 180 days requirement needs to be waived on your end for those 3 days.
No.
Through the chair.
Well, the statute.
Through the chair.
Yep.
The request of a continuance by the applicant waives the 180-day requirement.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the statute says it. No, thank you. The statute says, as the gentleman pointed out, that it's 180 days unless the applicant agrees to extend it. And given the situation, and given, you know, my prior practice, I think it's in fairness to everyone if you get to see what is the final decision, and, you know, the board hasn't voted on it, and to give the applicant, you know, that final opportunity if they feel necessary to comment on it. The board, you know, we've had a very limited discussion. I understand the issues are fairly limited. So it gives everyone a final opportunity before, you know, the executioner comes in and we hit midnight, you know, to address any outstanding issues.
Right. Okay.
You know, it's been my practice, you know, including during the pandemic. It's been my practice.
Right.
So
Okay.
yes, we will give you, if there's a written extension you want us to send, or if the building inspector has an extension to us to sign, you know, with the general understanding there would be a quote final draft for the board's consideration. I understand that if it's continued and you close the hearing on the 19th, you could take another 40 days. We understand that. But the board has acted in good faith, so I'm not going to worry about that right now.
Thank you. So, and again, the reason why I sought that clarification, it's not just for myself, it's for the members of the board that, you know, to make sure we're on the same page, and for the folks obviously listening at home who have a concern or interest in the project. So with that being said, I just need you to, well, let me do this. I'll close the, we need to have a request from the applicant to request a continuation until the November 19th meeting. That's what we formally need. And then I can request a motion from the board if there's nothing else to add.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I mean, for what it's worth, I see no reason to silence the applicant through this process and close the public hearing. And so I think that that's absolutely a reasonable request to continue if they wish to.
Okay.
So on behalf of the applicant, we would ask that the hearing be continued to your next meeting, November 19th, that the 180 days we acknowledge is being extended, and that would be the end of the 180-day period unless further extended to November 19th.
Excellent, thank you. So the applicant has submitted a request for continuance as stated. Do I have a motion on that request?
So, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to accept the applicant's request for continuance.
Pete
Do I
Jones,
have a second?
Pete Jones, second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, I'll approve that.
Thank you. Ms. Bush?
Approve.
Thank you, and I approve. So good luck, gentlemen. I'm sure in the next month or so you can work everything out.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Through the chair. I don't know that it's necessary, but just for the record, if the board could vote to accept the request to withdraw the modification as well.
Okay, that's a good one. So I have a motion proposed by the Department of Inspectional Services to request.
No, the applicant, Bob, the applicant has requested to withdraw their modification.
Right, okay. So I have a.
We need a
request-
motion to accept that withdrawal.
Right, that's where I'm going. Thank you. So do I have a motion to accept the withdrawal of the changes from earlier?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the withdrawal as stated.
Thank you. Pete Jones, second. Okay, Mr. Cussy.
Approve.
Thank you. Ms. Bush.
Approve.
And I approve. Thank you very much. So I do apologize for some of the challenges we face during these meetings. Sometimes it actually is easier in the town hall when we're all face to face and, with the different challenges we face. But thank you all for being patient and working through this with us. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant will send a letter next day or two to the board confirming the extension, the continuance to the 19th, that the 180 days is extended further to the 19th. Okay, so you'll have it in writing, confirming not only the continuance but the extension of the 180-day period. Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay.
So,
No, we appreciate it.
we are not going to close this hearing. This hearing remains open to the public for comment or any other concern. So we will move forward. Give you a minute and we will move on to either new business or other business.
Good night. Thank you very much. Thank you for staying with you. Thank you.
Okay, so on to, we have just some basic housekeeping, very simple. Other minutes, we have no minute meetings listed to be approved. I believe we did that. Do we have last month's ready yet, Caleb, or no?
No, that's all we have for tonight, Bob.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. So our next meeting scheduled for November 19th, 2020 at 5 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we adjourn, I know that, and the risk of keeping us a few more minutes, during the last meeting, the topic of start time for our meetings was brought up. And I believe the open question was to solicit any additional feedback from either citizen members or the board itself on thoughts on whether or not we should continue with a 5 o'clock start.
Yes, there was discussion on that. Do I have anything further? Mr. Cussy?
No, I'm good with the 5 o'clock.
Okay. Mr. Chicolo? I'm not hearing from Mr.
Larry's
Chicolo.
no longer with us, Bob.
I still see him up there as LC, but he might not be. He might not be.
Brian, I am here, and I have spoken with another member about the time. Undecided.
So, okay. Ms. Bush?
I'm okay with the 5 o'clock.
All right. Mr. Jones?
I love the 5 because it gives me an excuse to shut down my office at 5.
Okay. So let's leave it open until next month. I don't have a problem with the 5 o'clock, but if other members prefer to move it, 6, whatever it might be, I don't really have an issue with that. Do we want to continue this until the next meeting, Mr. Maron, or you want to consider the matter closed?
Being in the minority, I'll just again show my cards. Look, the 5 o'clock is a hardship for me. I'm making it work, but it does cut into my business, and I need to rearrange things. I would prefer a later start, but if the overwhelming majority of the board prefers a 5 o'clock, then I'll continue to make it work, such as until it's unworkable, and then I'll make my own decision on whether or not I can continue.
So would a 6 o'clock start time be more reasonable?
Yes.
No, I just want to, I am more than happy to change to accommodate Mr. Maron. I do not believe that volunteering for this board should be a hardship to anyone. So if If we need to do 6 or 7, I'm fine with it.
And I'm flexible as well. Is there anybody that is not flexible? Let's put it that way, besides Mr. Maron.
No, Rich Cussy, I can go anytime.
Right, okay. So, Mr. Maron, what would be a better start time for you?
Yeah, I grew accustomed to the 7. It worked for me professionally as well as personally. But I can certainly, based on the environment that we're thrust in virtually, I would certainly consider a compromise given the thoughtful nature of you guys considering my schedule. So if we were to move it, quite frankly, even a half hour to accommodate end of day business for me, or a 5:30 or a 6 start, would be a lot easier in my life, to be honest.
Okay, so the only thing I would suggest is that I think we should start on the hour, and it's not any other reason except for it seems like tradition. It's always been done that way. So, I mean, if anything, maybe we could propose a move till 6 o'clock. Would that be beneficial or other to anyone? Would that work for you, Mr. Maron?
It absolutely would, Mr. Chairman, and I'm humbled by the support.
So I'm gonna, anybody else have an issue with the 6 o'clock start time?
I think it's great.
Okay, so Caleb, my question to you then, sir, when could this start? I know we have to do a public notice, that type of thing. Or I'm not really sure if this is even involved with the governor's orders, but where would this change take place?
You can make this change for the next meeting on November 19th. We have ample time to make notification.
Excellent. So I have a request from Vice Chair Maron to move the start time from a 5 o'clock PM start time to a 6 o'clock PM start time to accommodate for a hardship. With that being said, do I have a motion on the floor from a member to consider that?
I move as stated.
All right, so Mr. Jones has approved the request from Mr. Maron as stated to move the start time of the meeting starting November 19th at 6 PM. Do I have a second?
Rich Cussy, second.
So that's Rich Cussy, second. Mr. Chicolo.
I agree.
All right. Ms. Roach. Excuse me. No, Ms. Roach is not here. Ms. Bush.
I agree.
All right, and I agree. The only thing I would like to ask is that it's going to start at 6 o'clock next time, but I'd just like to make sure that Ms. Roach is adequately informed and that she has the opportunity to put forth any comments or concerns.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll just for the record, I will vote to agree with gratitude.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we'll start at 6 next time. Hopefully we help Megan out as well. So with that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Good night, all.
Good night, sir. Thank you.